The pain behind the applause. For millions of fans around the world, Michael Jackson represented perfection. To watch him moonwalk across a stage, to hear his voice soar with impossible power and clarity, was to witness greatness. By the mid-1980s, his concerts had become religious experiences. Fans fainted, screamed, and wept just to be in his presence. But even legends are not born invincible. Long before Thriller rewrote the history of music, before stadiums overflowed with tears and applause, Michael Jackson experienced something that cut him to the core. He was booed. Stay in the spotlight. Hit like and subscribe for more untold celebrity stories. It was not the reaction he expected, nor the reaction he deserved. But it was the moment that shaped his resilience, his work ethic, and his unbreakable bond with his audience. This is the untold story of how Michael Jackson responded to being booed on stage for the first time, and why that painful night changed everything. Michael Joseph Jackson was born into a world of sound and struggle. By the age of 5, he was already performing with his brothers as part of what would later become the Jackson 5. While most children his age played in parks, Michael was rehearsing day and night, drilled by his father Joseph Jackson, a stern disciplinarian determined to turn his sons into stars. Michael's talent was undeniable. His voice had a purity and power far beyond his years, and his stage presence radiated charisma. In Gary, Indiana, he was already a star. But outside his hometown, the Jackson brothers still had to prove themselves. Their big break came in 1968 when they auditioned for Motown Records. But before Berry Gordy's label took them on, they were booked for smaller shows, including one that would become etched into Michael's memory for all the wrong reasons. The Apollo Theater in Harlem was one of the most famous and toughest venues in America. It was where legends were made, but also where countless acts were booed off the stage. The Apollo's audiences were notoriously unforgiving. If they loved you, they lifted you to the heavens. If they didn't, they let you know immediately. In 1967, the Jackson 5, still relatively unknown outside their region, were invited to perform. For Joseph Jackson, this was an opportunity to prove his boys belonged among the best. For Michael, just 9 years old, it was the biggest stage of his young life. He was nervous, but excited. The Jackson 5 had rehearsed endlessly, and Michael believed they could win the crowd. But nothing could prepare him for what happened when the curtain rose. The Jackson 5 began their set with covers of Motown hits. Michael sang lead, his voice clear and powerful. But the Apollo crowd was restless. They had seen countless acts like this before. They weren't impressed. Within minutes, a sound cut through the music, boos. At first scattered, then louder. Some audience members shouted for the group to get off the stage. Michael froze. At just 9 years old, the sound of disapproval hit him like a physical blow. He had poured his heart into the performance, and the rejection felt unbearable. His eyes filled with tears, but he kept singing, his small body trembling under the weight of humiliation. The booing didn't stop until the group finally walked off stage. Backstage, Michael was devastated. He buried his face in his hands and cried. "Why didn't they like us?" he asked his brothers. "What did I do wrong?" But Joseph Jackson refused to let his sons wallow. "This is the business," he told them sharply. "You get back out there and prove them wrong. You don't let nobody tell you you're not good enough." Michael took those words to heart. The pain of that night seared into his memory, but so did the lesson. He resolved then and there never to let an audience boo him again. If they wanted perfection, he would give them more than perfection. From that moment, Michael became obsessed with rehearsals. He practiced not only his singing but his dancing, his timing, his ability to connect with an audience. He studied the greats, James Brown, Jackie Wilson, Fred Astaire, and absorbed their every move. He was different after that, Tito Jackson later recalled. He wanted everything perfect. Every step, every note. He never forgot the feeling of being booed. Michael channeled the pain into fuel. If rejection could break him, then excellence could protect him. Just a year later, the Jackson 5 returned to the Apollo Theater. This time, they were sharper, more confident, more electrifying. Michael commanded the stage with a power far beyond his years. The audience that had once booed now cheered wildly. They rose to their feet, clapping and shouting as Michael moonwalked across their expectations and shattered them. That night, the Jackson 5 were not just another act. They were stars. And for Michael, it was redemption. Michael Jackson would go on to face criticism throughout his career, from jealous rivals, from the media, from those who never understood him. But the memory of being booed at 9 years old stayed with him forever. It taught him humility. It taught him resilience. And above all, it taught him the sacred responsibility of winning over an audience every single time. An audience is everything, Michael once said. If they believe in you, you can do anything. If they don't, you have nothing. That belief drove him to push the boundaries of performance, to create shows that left people breathless, and to rehearse until every detail was flawless. Ironically, the very pain that once crushed him became the secret ingredient of his greatness. Michael never wanted to feel the sting of rejection again, and so he worked harder, dreamed bigger, and reached further than anyone else in music history. From that moment in Harlem, the boy who had been booed became the man who would one day receive standing ovations in every corner of the globe. The first time Michael Jackson was booed on stage was not the end of his story, it was the beginning. It was the fire that forged his perfectionism, his discipline, and his relentless pursuit of excellence. What could have broken him instead built him into a legend. And so, when we look back at the King of Pop, we should remember not only the applause but also the silence and the boos that came before. For it was in those moments of pain that Michael Jackson found the strength to rise and to become unforgettable. Thanks for watching.